The story starts with Akane Sakuramori grabbing Saito Hojo by his collar, warning him not to tell anyone in their class about their marriage. 4 days earlier, Akane argues with Saito for not filling out the class journal correctly and scolds him for skipping his duty to clean the classroom blackboard. Saito defends himself, saying he doesn't want Akane to bother him. Himari, one of their classmates, steps in. She tells Akane to go easy on Saito and wonders why Akane is always on his case. Akane thinks of Saito as a cockroach she wants to crush. Just then, Shisei, Saito's cousin, shows up and pats his head. Himari thinks Akane might have a crush on Saito since she picks on him so much. But both Akane and Saito insist they would never fall for each other, even if they were the last people on Earth. On his way home, Saito gets a call from his grandfather, Tenryu Hojo. Tenryu invites him for coffee. Knowing Saito might refuse, Tenryu has already sent his men to pick him up in a car. It's revealed that Saito is next in line to inherit his grandfather's company. When Saito arrives at Tenryu's place, he's shocked to see Akane there. Akane's grandmother has also invited her. Soon, they learn that Saito's grandfather and Akane's grandmother have gotten married. During lunch, Akane and Saito keep bickering. Their constant arguing makes their grandparents nostalgic, reminding them of their younger days. Saito then asks why they've been called. Akane's grandmother and Saito's grandfather suggest in unison that Akane and Saito should get married. Akane and Saito are stunned, wondering if they heard correctly. Akane's grandmother and Saito's grandfather had feelings for each other in high school but never got together. Now, they want their grandchildren to fulfill their unfulfilled dream by marrying each other. Saito's grandfather says if he doesn't marry Akane, he'll leave the company to a dog. Akane's grandmother whispers something to her, leaving her shocked. Tenri gives them 3 days to decide. After their grandparents leave, Akane asks Saito if he really wants to marry her. Saito feels he has no choice. At home, Akane calls Himari and asks what she would do if she were forced to marry someone she didn't like. Himari says she would refuse because she already likes someone else. Akane wonders if she'll have to be intimate with her partner, and Himari jokes about having lots of children, making Akane blush. Meanwhile, Saito is stressed about the marriage. He tells Shisei he wants to be free but also inherit the company. Shisei reminds him he can't have both and that he needs his grandfather's money to achieve his dreams. 3 days later, Akane and Saito return to their grandparents' house and agree to the marriage. Saito's grandfather insists they marry immediately and has already prepared a house for them. Akane and Saito are overwhelmed at the thought of living together. As they enter their new home as a married couple, Akane and Saito feel uneasy. Akane's mind is filled with awkward thoughts, hoping they won't come true. The house is well furnished, but they discover there's only one bed. Akane is even more confused and tries to keep her distance from Saito. With no other place to sleep, Akane and Saito are forced to share the bed. Both are too embarrassed to sleep, feeling uncomfortable in their new situation. We return to the present, where Akane reminds Saito not to mention the word marriage in class. As they enter the classroom, Himari asks Akane what she was talking about with Saito earlier. Akane feels a little flustered but doesn't tell the truth. Instead, she tries to convince Himari that she really hates Saito. Meanwhile, Saito's cousin, Shizi, notices that his shampoo smells different. She asks him where he stayed last night. Saito tries to avoid the question, saying his dad bought a new shampoo, but Shizi doesn't let it go. She playfully bites his neck and asks if he's gotten married. It turns out Shizi looked into things when her grandparents started acting strange. She knows where Saito's new house is and is a little disappointed he didn't tell her about the marriage. Now, she plans to use this knowledge as leverage, reminding Saito that his world is in the palm of her hands. In class, Saito and Akane continue to bicker. The other students watch them curiously. When Saito and Akane ask Himari why everyone is staring, she explains that they've become popular because of their constant arguing. The class thinks they act like a married couple. Akane gets furious hearing this. At home, Akane is shocked to find the fridge filled only with juice bottles. She worries there's not enough proper food. Saito tells her not to worry because he's bought a dozen cup noodles and protein shakes. He mixes vegetable juice into a protein shake and offers it to Akane, but she refuses to drink it. She realizes Saito won't survive like this. So Akane decides to cook dinner herself. She prepares a meal for Saito, which reminds him of his past. But when he calls it normal food, Akane gets angry. The next morning, Akane tries to wake Saito up, but he's dreaming about his cousin, Shizi. Without realizing it, he pulls Akane closer. When he wakes up, he finds a flustered Akane beside him. Later, they argue over household chores. For example, Akane yells at Saito for not doing the dishes. These moments make Akane question her life even more. Saito tells her not to pry too much into his personal life. Later, Saito plays a zombie-themed video game, but Akane hates such games and asks him to stop. They receive the rest of Saito's belongings from his old house. Later, Saito decides to relax with a hot bath, but when he opens the bathroom door, he finds Akane inside. He wonders if she's passed out from the heat, so he checks on her. But he accidentally slips and falls on top of her, creating an awkward situation. Akane, completely flustered, wishes she could erase Saito from existence. Later, she realizes Saito's intentions were probably innocent, but she can't bring herself to apologize that night. After a few days, Akane and Saito decide to set some rules. For example, they agree to thank each other for small things like Akane's cooking. Akane also insists Saito do the dishes and laundry. Meanwhile, Saito is seen walking with his cousin Shizi. He tells her he's decided to reconcile with Akane and asks Shizi to come with him somewhere. Saito returns home with Akane's favorite cake. In response, Akane prepares a delicious meal that Saito genuinely enjoys. That night, Akane helps Saito with the dishes. Gradually, Saito starts to see a new side of Akane, one he kind of likes. Akane asks Saito if he wants to watch a rental movie with her, a 24-hour-long video about cute kittens. Luckily, Saito finds a 3-hour highlights version, so they watch that instead. Akane enjoys the movie, but Saito falls asleep. Afterward, Akane suggests they watch something Saito likes next time. Saito admits he's more into games. Even though Akane has never played games before, she decides to give it a try. Within 30 minutes, Akane becomes so good that she defeats Saito. Later that night, Akane asks Saito to stop calling her you and to use her name instead. They agree to start calling each other by their first names. The next day at school, Himari notices that Akane and Saito aren't arguing as much as usual. She also hears Akane call Saito by his first name and wonders what's going on. Akane gets flustered and quickly leaves the classroom. Meanwhile, Saito goes to the library to find a book on communication skills. Shizi teases him, asking why he needs such a book. Saito explains he wants to improve his relationship with Akane by working on his interpersonal skills. Later, Saito asks Akane if she wants to go shopping with him after school. Akane realizes he's indirectly asking her on a date and drags into a room to talk. Both of them know it's a date but try to hide it by calling it shopping. When Himari asks Akane if she wants to walk home together, Akane declines and runs off. While running down the hallway, Akane accidentally steps on Shizi, who had set a trap for her. Shizi directly asks if Akane is going out with Saito, but Akane runs away in embarrassment. Later, Akane and Saito go on their shopping date. Akane buys some necessary items and gets into a heated battle with other customers to buy discounted chicken. When Akane fails, Saito tries too, but he also fails. They promise to try again together next time. On their way home, Saito compliments Akane, saying she would make a great wife. Akane reminds him that she's already his wife. The next morning, Akane and Saito decide to eat something on their way to school. Unfortunately, Himari sees them together, but they play it cool to avoid revealing their secret. That night, Akane studies hard for a quiz exam. When she asks Saito about it, he says he doesn't need to study because he remembers everything from class. Saito prepares dinner for Akane to make sure she stays healthy. The next day, Akane looks exhausted in the hallway and almost falls asleep. When Himari asks what's wrong, Akane says she wants to beat Saito in the quiz exam. At night, Saito finds Akane in bad shape. She has a fever, but she still wants to study. Akane reveals that she dreams of becoming a doctor, but her family can't afford to send her to medical school. Her grandmother promised to pay her tuition if she marries Saito. As soon as Akane shares her secret, she realizes her mistake and covers her face with a blanket. Saito checks her temperature and decides they need to go to the hospital immediately. Since Akane doesn't want to call an ambulance, Saito carries her to the hospital. Akane thinks Saito is stronger than he looks. 7 days later, Akane is fully recovered. At school, Himari congratulates Saito for scoring a perfect 100 on the quiz test. As Himari gets closer to Saito, she playfully asks if he's getting flustered and then leaves. Just then, Akane arrives and warns Saito not to get too close to another girl when he has a wife. Akane hands Saito a homemade lunchbox after he forgets to bring his own to school. She insists he finishes everything because she put a lot of effort into making it. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Shizi demands Saito's lunch, even though she's already eaten hers. Still hungry, she insists on having some of his homemade meal. When Saito refuses to share, she throws a small tantrum, catching the attention of their classmates. They start questioning Saito's feelings for his cousin. At that moment, Himari arrives and notices that Saito and Akane have identical lunchboxes. The other students notice too and begin speculating if they're dating. The matching lunchboxes make them look like a married couple. Eventually, Saito gives in and offers Shizi a single spoonful, but she scoops up the entire meal in one go, claiming she's erasing the evidence of Akane being his wife. Later, Shizi asks Saito if everything is going well at home, and he assures her he's fine. In the hallway, Himari pulls Saito aside and asks if he's really not in a relationship with Akane. He explains it was just a coincidence their lunchboxes look the same and claims Akane has been copying him. Satisfied, Himari breathes a sigh of relief. That night at home, Akane senses a ghostly presence and screams, waking Saito. Terrified, she clings to him and refuses to let him sleep, demanding he check for any supernatural activity. Saito, who doesn't believe in ghosts, is reluctant but can't escape her grip. Later, while studying, Saito finds Akane trembling in fear. She claims to have heard footsteps in the living room and refuses to go back to her room until the ghost is gone. Her fear escalates to the point where she constantly follows Saito around the house, even making him stand guard outside the bathroom while she bathes. The next day, Saito tells Shizi about Akane's fear of ghosts, mentioning how she's too scared to even take a bath alone. Shizi takes it seriously and decides to investigate. During class, Shizi bluntly asks Akane if she's married to Saito. Alarmed, Akane and Saito quickly drag her to an empty classroom before anyone else hears. Furious, Akane scolds Saito for revealing their secret, but he insists Shizi figured it out on her own. Unconvinced, Akane remains skeptical, but Shizi assures them nothing escapes her notice. Akane eventually apologizes for keeping it a secret. Shizi then brings up Akane's ghost problem, warning that an ominous presence could bring bad luck to their grades. When Akane asks for a solution, Shizi insists on visiting their home to exorcise the spirit. As soon as Shizi arrives, she senses an eerie presence, convinced the house is close to crossing into the afterlife. Without hesitation, she starts rummaging through Saito and Akane's belongings, flustering both of them. When she asks Akane for more details about her ghostly encounters, she soon realizes the supposed ghost was actually her. Shizi admits she's been secretly visiting the house for the past few days after getting the keys from their grandfather. She explains she didn't want to interfere with Saito and Akane's time together, which led to the misunderstanding. After resolving the situation, Shizi demands a reward for her efforts. Since she enjoyed Akane's homemade lunch before, she requests another meal. Flattered by the praise, Akane puts her all into preparing a full-course dinner. Later, as they play video games, Shizi sits on Saito's lap, making Akane realize the two might be closer than she initially thought. Although she doesn't say it openly, Akane starts to feel a twinge of jealousy. That night, she confronts Saito about pampering Shizi too much. He casually remarks that Shizi is the kind of girl who would eat random stones off the ground if left unsupervised and asks if there's a problem. Before Akane can respond, Shizi suddenly appears between them, pressing closer to Saito, further irritating Akane. Later, after Saito falls asleep, Shizi turns to Akane and directly asks if she's jealous. Akane tries to deny it, but her feelings are obvious. With a knowing smile, Shizi feels relieved that her brother is living peacefully with Akane. In a flashback, we see how Akane and Himari became friends. One day, Himari asks Akane if she wants to watch a TV drama she recorded. Akane refuses, saying she doesn't have time, but Himari persists and eventually wins her over. Back in the present, Himari asks Akane if she has any feelings for Saito. Akane is surprised by the question and says she doesn't feel that way about him. She wonders why Himari is asking. Himari admits she has a crush on Saito. She mentions how dependable he is, unlike other boys at school. She recalls how Saito once helped a boy during a school event. Akane remembers Saito carrying her to the hospital and realizes he truly is dependable. Since Akane is closer to Saito, Himari asks for her help. She wants Akane to tell her everything she knows about Saito. Suddenly, Akane realizes she doesn't know much about her husband. She starts closely observing Saito and writes down his actions in a diary. Saito wonders what's going on, but Akane refuses to explain. She even records his movements, even during dinner. She asks Saito what type of girl he likes. Saito says he doesn't have a specific type. Then she asks about his food preferences. Saito thinks and mentions he likes sushi, steak, and chirashi seafood with salted salmon roe. He says he likes his steak rare, but Akane notes it as raw. The next day, Akane tells Himari that Saito likes raw meat. Himari is surprised but happy to learn something new about her crush. Akane also tells Himari about Saito's hobbies and love for video games. Himari wonders how Akane knows so much, but Akane quickly says she overheard Saito and Shizi talking. At home, Saito is disappointed that there's no steak for dinner. He thought Akane would make it after asking about his preferences. Akane finds Saito childish but decides to take responsibility. Later, she prepares a delicious steak for him, which makes Saito very happy. He praises her, and Akane feels motivated to cook more for him. The next day at school, Himari asks Saito what kind of girl he likes. Saito says he doesn't have a fixed type and prefers to know someone before falling in love. Himari subtly asks how he feels about her. At home, Akane finds a notebook on Saito's desk labeled Super Secret. She wonders what's inside but doesn't ask. Later, she asks Saito to recommend some books. He suggests a tough book in human history. Thinking it's humorous, Akane tells Himari, who finds the book hard to understand. In class, Saito thanks Himari for always stopping his fights with Akane. He says he'd be lost without her. Himari shares how Akane once saved her from bullies in childhood. Akane overhears this heartfelt confession. During lunch, Himari plans to visit Akane's house to chat. Akane panics, knowing her secret with Saito might be exposed. She tries to stop Himari but eventually gives in. She rushes home and tells Saito to clean up quickly. Himari arrives earlier than expected. Saito dashes to his room to hide everything. Meanwhile, Himari confesses her feelings for Saito to Akane. She says she wants to ask him out but doesn't want to compete with Akane. Akane reassures her she has no feelings for Saito, calling him snobbish and insensitive. Himari feels relieved. Saito overhears Akane's remarks and seems hurt. The next morning, Himari asks Saito out on a date. Outside the classroom, Akane is visibly frustrated. Shizi, standing with Akane, asks if she'll do anything to stop them. Shizi tries to make Akane acknowledge her feelings. At home, Saito tells Akane about Himari's invitation. Akane is irritated but hides her emotions, telling Saito he can do whatever he wants. The next morning, Saito asks Akane again if she really doesn't mind him going. He says he won't go if she tells him not to. At first, Akane stays silent, but as Saito is about to leave, she hugs him from behind and begs him not to go. With tears in her eyes, Akane reminds him that, even if it's just for show, he's still her husband. Saito reveals he already turned down Himari. Instead, he takes Akane shopping. The next day at school, Himari acts as if she hasn't been rejected. She tells Saito she won't give up and will keep trying to win his heart. Meanwhile, Akane is determined not to lose and finally realizes her hidden feelings for Saito.